I'm here at the track to do an experiment to see how much cadence really affects our performance.
This is stupid. What's wrong with me?
So what is the most efficient running cadence? Let's find out. Okay, here's the game plan. I'll be running 10 laps of the track at marathon, half marathon, 10K and 5K effort, but changing my cadence every 2 laps. How am I keeping things consistent? I'll be using a Stride power meter to make sure I keep the same power output for each lap, ensuring that any differences in pace are due to the change in cadence. So essentially the cadence with the fastest lap wins. Now I know that running 40 laps of the same bit of grass might not sound like a whole lot of fun, but dogs seem to enjoy it, so there might be something in it. So I've chosen a range of cadences which I think will be in my optimum range, and hopefully I'm right, because I really want to have to run this experiment again. So for the marathon and half marathon efforts, I'll start at 175 steps per minute, gradually working my way up to 195 in 5-step increments. And because cadence tends to naturally increase with speed, I'm going to bump that range up a little bit for the 10K and 5K efforts. So for those ones, I'll start at 180 and work my way up to 200. At least that's the plan. I had surgery a couple of days ago. It was only minor, but still under general anesthetic, still not feeling 100%. So I hope I can get through the session okay. I think it might be a pretty tough one. Anyway, let's do it. So here we go, a marathon effort. As you can hear, I'm using a metronome to keep my cadence right. My power meter to keep the power constant. And track season's well and truly finished, so the lanes aren't marked, but we got lane 1, which is all we need. Well, that's the marathon effort done. If I had to guess, I reckon 185 steps per minute certainly felt the most comfortable for me, so we'll see if it's the most efficient. On to the half marathon efforts. This feels so weird, going from 195 steps per minute, dropping down to 175. So at half marathon effort now, just need to hold the same power. This is stupid. What's wrong with me? Running in a circle, listening to a metronome non-stop for 2 hours. Ridiculous. Oh boy, well this is tougher than it should be. I think a combination of the fact that I had surgery 2 days ago and running on grass, I don't know, this is tough, but on to the 5K reps, let's get it done. Well, that's it done. Finally get to stop listening to that metronome. Grab a drink, cool down. To compare each cadence, I used a metric called running effectiveness, which is just the speed to power ratio. It's calculated by dividing speed in meters per second by power in watts per kilogram. It's a metric that'll account for any slight power variations across cadences to make sure we're comparing apples to apples. So here's a graph of the results. I left out the last 2 splits from the 5K efforts because by that point I was just too cooked to finish them. I only ran 1 lap instead of 2, so the data from those ones wasn't valid. But there's a very clear trend. Running effectiveness goes up with faster cadence. At all effort levels, a quicker cadence led to better power to speed conversion. And other metrics related to running economy and form also improved with higher cadence. Ground contact time, vertical oscillation, form power ratio, and impact loading rate all improved, indicating better running economy. So everything seemed to get better the more I increased cadence. But does this mean I should always run with a faster cadence? Not exactly. During the test, I quickly realized that there's another major factor that I wasn't accounting for: metabolic cost, or how much effort it takes to maintain a certain power. Even though my running effectiveness was best at 200 steps per minute, it felt harder to maintain, suggesting a higher metabolic cost. So despite a better speed to power ratio, I would tire faster due to higher energy use. So to investigate this further, I ran a second test, but this time on a treadmill, keeping paces identical. I ran intervals at each cadence with full recovery in between, and analysed my heart rate to estimate metabolic cost. This helped me see when a higher cadence made me work too hard for the improvement in running effectiveness. And for this test, I mixed up the order of the cadences and did it over 2 days to try and minimise the chances of fatigue affecting the results. So here's a graph showing my average and maximum heart rate for each interval in this second treadmill test. As expected, my heart rate generally went up with faster cadences, but not as much as I thought. For marathon and half marathon paces, around 195 steps per minute seemed to be the point where I started working harder. But at 10k and 5k paces, my heart rate actually dropped to 200 steps per minute. Now, this might be because I ran the 200 steps per minute intervals first, or maybe that 200 is my optimal cadence for these paces. And given that 195 seems optimal for half marathon pace, it's likely that 200 will be best for 10k and 5k paces, as we know that cadence increases with speed. I could run another test at higher cadences to confirm this, but I can't really be bothered. So what can we learn from all of this? Well, first thing to remember is that this is just a single person experiment, so take all of this with a fistful of salt. But it seems quite clear that increasing cadence improves power to speed ratio, and this improvement's significant. Using the data from my treadmill test, if I ran 2 half marathons at 319 watts, one at 185 steps per minute, and the other at 205 steps per minute, my times would be 1:28 and 1:25 respectively. That's a big difference. However, it seems there's a point where the gains in running effectiveness aren't worth the extra effort. Proper lab tests would pinpoint this more accurately, but from my tests, it seems to be around 195 steps per minute for marathon and half marathon paces, and 200 steps per minute for 10k and 5k paces. But don't assume these numbers apply to you. Cadence is affected by height and leg length, so your optimal cadence will be unique to you. Also, given the lower impact loading rate of higher cadences, it can make you less prone to injury. But of course, you need to be cautious when changing your cadence or running form, as it can cause injuries if done too quickly. Now, I was curious about what current research says on the topic, so I read a few studies and found that my results are exactly in line with their recommendations. That the best cadence for most people is about 5 to 7% higher than their natural cadence, and that there's a significant reduction in impact loading rate with higher cadences. Well, I hope you found this helpful. Next week, I'll be testing the running effectiveness of several different types of shoes to find out how much of a difference so-called super shoes actually make. I'll see you then.